Hello, my name is Sarah Bates. My Girl Scout Gold Award project is called Safety for Superstars. Kids deserve to feel safe at school, but many schools don't have the proper window coverings for safety drills. I made about 50 of these for my local elementary school, Marshall Darnell Elementary, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make one as well. This is what they look like once they're rolled up, and this is what they will look like on the window. You can make them whatever shape you need for your window, and today I'm going to show you how to make these. Here are the materials you're going to need for this project. First, fabric. I used black, but you can use any color, but black works the best to block out all of the light. You won't need 4 yards, but once we measure later, you'll be able to see how much you need. I just use these because they're easier for me because they're already pre-cut. Then you'll need thread in a color that matches your fabric. A tape measure. You can use either a soft one like this or a retractable one, either works. Sewing pins. A good pair of fabric scissors, a marking tool for your fabric, I prefer these chalk pencils, hand sewing needles, ribbon, hooks to hang them up with. I use these, I got these on Amazon, but you can use command hooks or whatever works best for you. And 1-inch plastic rings. I also got these on Amazon, but wherever you can find them is good. I use 1 inch because it's the size that works best for these hooks that I have. And optionally, if you want to decorate them, I have some heat transfer vinyl that I cut to make stars for mine, but you can cut them to whatever shape you want if you have a Cricut. I also have these personalized labels that I got from Etsy that I sew on each one, but these are also optional as well. And of course, you're also going to need a sewing machine. Now, let's get started. This is what the fabric looks like laid flat, and now we're going to take it and fold it in half long ways. This is what you want it to look like once it's folded, just one long vertical strip of fabric. Now it's time to measure the size of your curtain. Before you do this, you have to go measure 2 measurements from the window, the vertical distance and the horizontal distance. Add 1 inch to each of these numbers and mark it out on your fabric, on the side opposite where the fold is. Use a ruler to find the inches for these points and make sure you draw straight lines. These are the lines we're going to be cutting on later, so make sure you draw the lines as straight as possible. Now it's time to cut your fabric. Take your fabric scissors and cut on the lines you drew. Make sure you cut as straight of a line as possible to ensure that the curtain comes out straight. Now you have 2 pieces of fabric, so take your pins and pin them together along the left side. This is what the presser foot looks like on my machine. Mine uses a drop-in bobbin, but yours might have a front-loading bobbin. If you've never threaded your machine before, consult another tutorial on how to do it, because all machines have different ways to thread depending on the model. This is how the fabric should be lined up under the presser foot. The reason we added 1 inch to each measurement earlier is because we use half-inch seam allowance for these curtains. There's a line that marks the half-inch seam allowance on each sewing machine, so to find where it is located on your machine. This is what it looks like for mine. Press down on the pedal on your machine to sew forward. Once you do that, then you're going to want to backstitch. My machine has this button to backstitch, and you'll want to do that a couple times to make sure it's secure. So you sew forward, you press the backstitch button, and then you sew over what you just did. It should look something like this. Once you've done that a few times, use the pedal to sew all the way down the side. Once you get to the end, do the same thing, sew forward, back, until you create a secure end for the seam. The seam should look like this once done. Now we are going to pin the other side just like we did with the first. Add pins all the way down the one side. Now you're going to do the same thing to one short end of the fabric. Add pins all the way down to attach the 2 sides. This seam is the same as the other side. You're going to sew it at a half-inch seam allowance and make sure to backstitch at the beginning and end. This is the same method for both the other side seam and the seam on the short end of the fabric. This is what it should look like now. There is a seam on both long sides of the fabric and another seam on one of the shorter ends. The other end should be left untouched. Once you have sewn those 3 seams, you're going to take your fabric scissors again and trim off some of the excess seam allowance. You should leave about a 1/4 inch. Now you are going to change your machine to be able to sew a zigzag stitch. Some newer machines have the option to change the stitch you want to use, but because I have an older machine, you can also achieve this by changing the stitch width by this slider. This is how we're going to position the fabric on the machine. Line up the edge of your fabric with the center line of your presser foot. We are doing this zigzag stitch to make the fabric unlikely to unravel in the future. Sew all the way down the edges of the 3 seams you made, still leaving that one short side untouched. There's no need to backstitch because these stitches are unlikely to unravel. One of the short sides of your fabric should still be left open. Through that hole, you're going to take the entire curtain and turn it inside out. This means that all of the seams and all of the zigzags you just made will be hidden inside the curtain. Once you have flipped your curtain inside out, you're going to go to the top open part and mark with your ruler 1/2 inch down from the top. Draw a straight line across with your fabric pencil where you marked your 1-inch line. Make that same line on the other side as well. Once you have done that, you're going to fold both of those pieces inside of the fabric. This is a picture of how I did that. You're just going to take both of them and fold them inside with the line being where the fold is. It should end up looking like this, the top part of the fabric being folded inside itself. Then you are going to take your pins and pin halfway across for now. This will help keep the fold inside the fabric where it needs to be. Set the curtain aside for now. You're going to take your ribbon and cut 2 strips that are about 12 inches long in length. Line the ribbons up and place them inside the fold about 1 inch down. Then you're going to place a pin inside the 4 layers, the top layer of fabric, the 2 ribbons, and the back layer of fabric to keep everything in place. Once the ribbons are in place, then you can go ahead and pin down the rest of the seam. Now we're ready to sew this seam. On my sewing machine, we are going to sew at the 1/4 inch mark for this seam. Be sure to backstitch at both the beginning and the end. This is what it should look like when sewn all the way across. The ribbon is inside the seam, and that ribbon will be used to tie up the curtain when not in use. All of the machine sewing for the curtain is done, and now it's time to move on to the hand sewing to attach the rings. You're going to need a piece of thread, 2 of the plastic rings, and a hand sewing needle. You'll need to use a piece of thread long enough to double thread your needle, which means once you thread your needle, both sides of the thread should be the same length. To anchor the thread in place, we need to have a knot. So to do this, you're going to hold the needle by the eye. The bottom thread shown in this picture is the part of the thread that is inside the needle's eye, and the top thread is the 2 threads that are sticking out from the other end. You basically make a U shape to hold the bottom threads on top of the thread that is coming out from the needle. With the thread that is on top, you're going to wrap it around the needle twice. This is going to be the prep to create the knot. Once you have those 2 loops on your needle, you're going to hold both of them and pull them in the direction of the eye, all the way down the thread. If you did it correctly, at the end of the thread, they should create a knot that looks somewhat like this. Once you have your knot, then you're going to take your thread and pull it through the fabric. The knot should stop it from going all the way through. Then you're going to take your needle and put it through the center of the plastic ring. Bring your needle back towards the front of the fabric and pull the thread all the way through. This will create 1 stitch attaching the ring to the fabric. Repeat that same process another 6 to 8 times to have enough stitches to securely attach the ring to the fabric. Once you've done 1 stitch, you're going to bring your needle forward through the ring and back through the front end of the fabric, pulling through. That will create another stitch. Now that the ring is securely attached, we need to tie a knot to end off this thread. So what you're going to do is stick your needle through the first 3 or 4 stitches that you made, and then pull until you have a loop left of your thread. You're going to take your needle and pull it through that loop and pull tightly. That will create a knot that is secure and will keep this ring on. Take some scissors and cut off the excess thread. You're going to repeat that exact same process over again for the other side, so you have 2 rings on your curtain. And that's it. Your curtain is now complete. But if you wanted to decorate it a little bit, I use a Cricut machine and some heat transfer vinyl to add a design onto the front. And that's it. To hang your curtain, you'll place 2 command hooks on either side of the door frame and use the plastic rings to hang the curtain up. When not in use, you can roll up and use the ribbon to secure. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this will help you create some curtains of your own.